Thanks, Chairman Grassley. I want to take a moment to reflect on yesterday's session with Ms. Bondi. There seemed to be a meeting of minds on criminal justice reform and the pressing need to protect our children online. Those are good things. There are still some outstanding issues from yesterday's hearing that I'm struggling with. Let's start with a very important issue. Who won the election in 2020? Why are we still asking that question? For goodness sakes, we moved on to a new election. You would think that'd be over. The reason why that's still a relevant question is it gets to the heart of our democracy. The peaceful transition from one president to a new president by the will of the people without resistance and without denial. Does the phrase hanging Chad have any significance to our witnesses? It does to me and to every American. In the year 2000, Bush versus Gore, there was a contest that went on into December and numerous court contests associated with it as to who actually won that election. There came a moment when Al Gore stood up and said, that's it, it's over. I've gone to court, I can keep going to court, but I don't think that's in the best interest of this country. I concede, George W. Bush won. You didn't hear Democrats at that saying, never say that in public. Never concede that in public. We did. George W. Bush won the election because Al Gore decided to step out at a point when Bush was ahead, period. End of story. That is what a democracy is all about. One person concedes, the other person wins. We move to the next president and ultimately the next election. But that's not the case in the year 2020. We still have a candidate, in this case, President Trump, who's in denial as to what happened in 2020. And as a consequence, some characterize it a big lie, whatever you want to characterize it. It really is an important question because it gets to the fundamentals of anyone seeking a position in the cabinet of this president or serving our nation. Do they acknowledge the peaceful transition of power in 2020 from Donald Trump to Joe Biden? The answer is yes. The reason is we had the certification of the electoral vote. Senator Klobuchar remembers that well. And we went through the process we're supposed to go through in our Constitution. End of story. But yet when I asked that simple question of Ms. Bondi yesterday, she was unable to say just expressly yes. Joe Biden received more votes than Donald Trump and was elected president in 2020. Why is that such a hard question? I don't understand. Why couldn't she state it plainly that that's what happened? When a nominee for Attorney General is afraid to state a simple fact, then what does it say about the future of our democracy and the credibility of our system of justice? She not only refused to acknowledge President Trump's defeat in 2020, she also said, quote, there was a peaceful transition of power. Let me repeat that, a peaceful transition of power. Seen the videotapes? What happened here on January 6th? Can you imagine if the news came on and said, did you hear what happened in London today? A mob stormed the Houses of Parliament, crashed through the door of the House of Commons, took control of British Parliament, and we hope that the police can take control back in a matter of hours so they can continue their business. What would we say to that? In London, in England, they went through what? A mob storming the Houses of Parliament, knocking down the door? Incredible. Whatever happened to that country? We thought they were leaders in the world. Now reflect for a moment on January 6, 2021, and what we went through. All of us went through individually, being spirited out of the Capitol building, taken to a safe place because of a mob. That was not a peaceful transition of power. And I want to just say, Sheriff Gainey, thank you for joining us today. You may have noticed, we all noticed around here, we're not supposed to notice, we should, the men and women in uniform who protect us in this chamber and throughout these buildings day in and day out. God bless them. But what they went through on January 6th is an outrage. Attacks on them, several lost their lives as a consequence of what they went through. Many were forced into retirement, and hundreds of people were arrested for trespassing and much more serious crimes. Donald Trump characterizes them as political prisoners. The people who attacked our policemen are characterized as political prisoners, and he promises that he's going to give a pardon to all of them on the day that he's sworn into office. I asked a basic question of Ms. Bondi as the chief law enforcement officer. which she would be under as Attorney General. What do you think about the pardons? She wouldn't comment. Well, she made it clear she stood behind the police, but you can make them clear by saying to Donald Trump, this is a bad idea. Anyone who is guilty of violence, certainly guilty of violence, should not be pardoned on the day that you're sworn in as president. So I was at least disappointed by her answer. And then this Kash Patel issue. Kash Patel, I'm going to meet him next week for the first time. I've read an awful lot about him. There's an awful lot to read. He has a lot to say, and he said it, and he's published it in book form. One of the things he said is that he has an enemies list. Secret police agencies throughout history have an enemy list. The American FBI does not and should not. I think there's serious questions about this man, his judgment, and his political values that he would bring to office. Yesterday, Ms. Bondi embraced him as a person who's right for the job. I certainly don't feel that way. He's going to have to convince me. So there are questions raised. Having said that, I want to concede two things. First, if I were setting out to hire an attorney, she certainly has the strongest resume and should be hired. Number two, the testimony today, particularly from people of the opposite political party in Florida, is a testimony to the fact that she's been bipartisan and very effective as Attorney General. I will concede that point. When she talks about the things she achieved, I'm impressed. I should be. But the question is, when Donald Trump knocks on her door as Attorney General, and he will, if you question that, ask Jeff Sessions or ask Bill Barr, he will knock on her door and ask her to do something that's going to be a challenge ethically or morally. It's just his nature. He views that office as an office he personally controls. He doesn't. The American people and the Constitution control that office, and we have to resolve whether or not Ms. Bondi is a person to be the next Attorney General. Our first minority witness is Lisa Gilbert, co-president of Public Citizen, a nonprofit organization with more than 500,000 members. The organization has an extensive record of investigating conflicts of interest in public corruption, and Ms. Gilbert will speak to the dangers of confirming someone with corporate interest as Attorney General. Second witness, Mary McCord, Executive Director of the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection. She's a visiting professor at the prestigious Georgetown Law Center. Prior to these roles, Ms. McCord served for nearly 20 years as Assistant U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, also served as Assistant Attorney General for National Security from 2016 to 2017, and Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General from 2014 to 2016. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you.